Hello and welcome back to Dime to Diamonds. I am Suzanne Porske, owner and founder of Phoenix Financial Group. I am joined in studio today by a very good dear friend and colleague,
Rachelle Harp with Rachelle Harp CPA.
Yes, good to be back.
It's wonderful to be back.
Sharing the good news. I love that we're able to do this.
We really enjoy pouring out all the information as much as possible.
And it's nice to have these to go back on when maybe there's somebody that goes, oh, we've talked about it in a meeting with them. And then I go, hey, we have a podcast on that and a blog. You will always, up to this point, I can't speak for future, but up to this point, anything that her and I have ever talked about is off of a blog that has been put on phx.financial. So if you want to know more or want an outline of what we're talking about, those are our thoughts that have been typed up.
Yeah.
So
if you're a visual reader like me, I'm a very visual person, so I like to see and follow through.
And there's always so much more than what we're talking about. Yes. We may or may not, I may or may not get down some rabbit holes.
Never. We never.
Give some examples. Yes. Today we're going to talk about helping adult children buy a home and how to gift a down payment the smart way.
Yes, because there's a lot of traps that could happen if you don't strategically plan how you're going to invest that kind of money.
Right. Well, let's start with how much harder it is these days. We were talking about home ownership. And we have behind the camera over here helping us today, Jake Johnson with Best in BA. And he was saying how much harder it is he's younger than us.
A little bit.
Substantially. To be my son. So proud of him. But they just bought their first house. And I think there was a post that the marketing team did for Phoenix Financial on Facebook. And it said, what was your age when you bought your first house? And I know for me, 21.
Yeah, but I was 24, 25.
Right. And most of the people were paying in that 20 age range. Now the average this year statistically is 40.
Which is mind-blowing to me. I mean, that's just crazy to think that it took people almost 15 to 20 more years before they were able to do something that, in my opinion, is a good financial investment.
Exactly. I think the parents are able to help out. We're in the middle of the largest transfer of wealth that's ever happened in our nation. Thank you, baby boomers.
Yes.
It's grandparents and parents that are transitioning and that income is coming in. That's able to help. But like we've said, and this is what this whole blog is about, the smart ways to do it, right. Making sure that you, as you said so eloquently before we went on air, it reminds me of the airplane.
Yes.
Where it's counterintuitive, but
but you know, the wonderful steward lady or gentleman nowadays. I love the ones that are funny and jokey, but they always tell you put your mask on first before you try to help your little one.
Right.
Because the reality is, if you are trying to help someone else, you might not get yours on in time.
Right. So financially transitioning that is make sure that you are financially set. You've talked to a financial professional. You're going to see we can talk to you about maybe some of the detours that might occur with your health or taxation or inflation. Look at where you're at now before you go out and you help, just to make sure that you're not going to lose your security and your plan.
Yeah. You don't want your generosity to impact your retirement plan.
Right.
And having that conversation before you pull the trigger.
Right. And it's not to have anybody fear, like people go, oh, should I not do it? I go, no, I never said that. There's just going to be a smart way to do it. And then once you give that gift, there's very strategic ways to do that. And even before we went on air, you're talking to me about capital gains and stuff. I'm like, I can think of a couple of my clients that they're going to have to be concerned about that. At some point, because they're on the title of the kid's house.
Yeah, but that's where I was telling you that the co-ownership piece is probably not the best route to go, because what happens is, right, you now own a residence, your kids live there, that is their primary residence, but you do not, so it's not your primary. So if they sell that, they get to exclude 250 or 500,000 of capital gains if they're married, filing jointly, of that, and not have to pay taxes on that. But because you are a co-owner, you now have to recognize capital gains, and you don't have an exclusion opportunity because that's not your primary residence. So now you've just opened up this can of worms that you didn't see coming.
Right. And if they've realized it, if they've realized that gain and they've now taken that into their income stream and they are on Medicare, now they're going to see that and their Medicare payment's going to go up, not just one time, but for 24 payments. So I'll get clients that come in and say, why did my Medicare jump from $252 a month out of my Social Security to $700 a month for 2 years? Because if you can only earn, that's that lovely IRMA, they only allow you to earn those earning thresholds so much, and then they put an excise tax on your Medicare. So that's why we tell people.
And we talked about that it's not just what you think of as normal income, right? A lot of people think it's W-2 or my retirement income. It's anything that made you better today than you were yesterday. That's going to be income when they're looking at it from that perspective. So it's very easy to get over those thresholds.
Right. And then you can say, well, I gifted it. But like you said, gifting it isn't a deduction.
Correct.
It just is, it reduces taxes on the overall amount, but you, right?
Yeah. So like on the gifting side, there's the threshold. So you have 19,000 per recipient that you can give in 2026. So a married couple effectively could gift about 76,000 to another married couple, right? So they can give that, and there's no impact.
No 1099 has to be sent out.
Nothing happens. You don't even have to fill out the gift tax return, which is the other piece that we're talking about. But if you give over that amount, you fill out the gift tax return, which then is a tally that goes towards your lifetime gifting.
Okay.
Which is the 15 million per person. So if you have more than 30 million to give, we might need to have conversations with the rest of the world. It's not a big deal other than you need to make sure that you are reporting it. So the IRS doesn't care that you gave it. They just care whether or not you should be reporting it.
Okay. And again, that ties back to somebody going, yeah, we gave them a sizable down payment and we're on the house for the protection of it. And sometimes they're doing that protection because, well, what if they don't work out and I'm there to help him or I'm there to help her? There's more to it. And this is where this whole blog came about in talking about that. And I think we shared this on prior episodes of 42 plus years now. I've been in this seat as a financial professional, and we hear the stories and we've lived it with our clients. So now if I can go, hey, on this road trip, financially, these are some things to just be aware of if this is what you're considering. So if you are considering helping out, which hopefully you're in a position to do that, gifting money for somebody to buy their first home, that you do take the time to talk to a financial professional, read the blog, or continue listening to us for the next 20 minutes, talk to you about some of the things that might come up for you. I know on one of these is clarifying the goals and the boundaries, whether it is a gift or a loan.
Correct. Yeah. And so when we're talking about a gift, right, you just give someone something. There's no expectation in return. When you provide a loan, there is the expectation that you're going to get money back. You're going to get your principal, which is the whole piece that you gave, plus interest. So there should be some type of loan documentation, a loan schedule saying when you're going to make payments, how much of that is interest. And then there's still that gifting opportunity using a loan, right? You can choose to forgive parts of that loan as time goes, but that loan document makes it a loan rather than a gift initially. But you have to have the documentation. Right. That is key. If it's not written down, it didn't happen. So
how that helps is, so there was a divorce. Now that loan has to be repaid. That it's recognized. The thing is, and here's the tricky part. There's so many moving parts in this. The first mortgage lender isn't going to want to see that somebody's in a second position on that title. Correct. So it has to be a personal loan that is documented within the family and not documented on a deed.
Correct.
And so then if there is a divorce, that is recognized that down payment now is 50-50 or maybe just all to one, or putting language when you're giving the money saying, okay, this is a gift to this specific person, and making sure, like you just said, paper trail.
And you can go get it notarized. I mean, I think that's a good opportunity to, go pay your $5 or whatever it might be. Banks a lot of times do it in different things, but it gives that official document that, everybody signed it and everybody,
understands
agrees to this.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right. We also talked about putting that, and I had this with a grandparent. They just put it in their estate plan that X amount of dollars was given, and therefore when the estate was settled and split out, that amount was taken from each one of the people that had already had an amount given to them. So there are ways to really make sure it's even and fair for everybody, because I've had that too, where clients are like, that's not really, we know that these two were old enough to receive this money, these two weren't.
Right.
But I'm like, if we put that language in a trust, then it's for the executor can execute those wishes and make sure that it's all,
Well, and you can even do that with children, that where maybe you gave something to a child while they needed it now, but then you have other children who didn't need that as additional financial help, where it makes it even, right? So you're documenting what you're giving to whom, so that you're able to keep track and do what you believe is fair. And I'm going to use that word, what you believe is fair. I'm not saying it has to be 25, 25, 25, just whatever you believe is fair.
Right. We just had a estate plan this week, and the intern that's here in the office, he said, hey, how come this one guy gets 10% and then the rest of it split much more to the rest of them? And I said, well, that's the nephew that's doing the work. He's the executor, so she's making sure he's compensated 10%, which you can get compensated by what it is, fair market value. Like the courts do that every year to give a percentage. This lady wanted to make sure at least minimum 10%. And then the rest would be split after all the assets to the others. And I said, yeah, this is where this language can be used. You can get that specific. Again, documenting any cash gifts is so important.
Yes.
And the other thing on here, strategy 2, is like an intra-family loan, possibly through a trust, making sure they've got skin in the game. Even if you did say, hey, here's the principal and interest I'd like paid, even if it's a nominal amount, they may feel more responsible.
Correct.
In the ownership of it. And again, you can always forgive it.
Correct.
At any time. Yep. Co-owning the property on taking equity share again. Whew.
Yeah, that's big risk. I would lean against it. I mean, there are going to always be the exceptions to the rules, right? But you take a big capital gains risk when you do that. The other thing, I recently had someone reach out to me, and they are wanting to give their child some land, which sounds amazing, right? That's wonderful that you want to do that, but they are still alive. And when you give things to people while you are still alive, they don't get step-up basis. So that's where we're talking capital gains again, right? And so step-up basis occurs when someone passes away, the next person inherits the land, property, whatever it might be. They can get an appraisal done and get fair market value step-up basis. So now what they own it at is at that fair market value of today. Right. Versus when you bought that land 100 years ago, or maybe your grandpa bought it 100 years ago, he bought it at $1,000. Well, it's worth $100,000 today. They can get it valued at that $100,000. Right. So they're mitigating down those capital gains. But if you do that before you pass away, they don't get that.
I've had people that have a bunch of rental properties, and they're trying to figure out how to get rid of all that, because now they are trying to really mitigate their taxes. And they're like, we're going to end up giving these to our children right now. And Mark and I were in a meeting, and I said, hey, so before we make any decisions, your homework is, like, we went through all 17 properties and listed them. And I said, now, who do you think, John, like what for here? Mm-hmm. So they did. And I said, now your homework is to go and have that conversation with that son and ask him if he wants those, if he wants all those properties and he wants to do what you're doing, which is the rental aspect of it. And they came back a couple of weeks later, and they were just, I don't know. They had all the air out of their balloon. None of the kids wanted the rental property.
Work. It's a lot of work.
And then, like you just said, had they just went ahead and put it in their name, now they don't get the step-up basis. Correct. So now when they want to go sell it, John wanted to sell those properties. He's got huge capital gains on all that.
Correct.
And the taxes, which these people thought they were gifting him this beautiful gift, has just been impacted by the taxes. So it's like, I get what you're trying to do. You may just want to sell it and do this right now and get a plan together, because they knew their Medicare was going to go up.
Right. For 2 years.
As soon as they started getting that influx of cash in. So that's one plan. Let's get 17 sold, get the cash in, pay the taxes, get it all
in the same year.
And then get the investments that are going to be easily transferred to them upon your transition. But there's just all those different things I don't think people really realize. They think it's just like a piece of clothing that they can give to somebody and it's not going to have a financial impact negatively.
Correct.
Which,
well, we've even talked on when you're gifting things to, we usually are talking more inheritance, but
right.
The younger generation, you could impact their FAFSA for their kids, right? So there's other areas where people need to be mindful of how much money they're making. It's not just in retirement. Even when they're younger, there's sometimes certain areas where you have to be careful, as well as the individual who was receiving Social Security disability.
SSI? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Yeah, Social Security disability income. So SDI and you can't just give that money because that'll kick them off of their programs.
Yeah.
And so you have to. And again, everything goes back to a trust with me. If you have a trust and they receive if the trust is a beneficiary and everything, and the rental properties, I don't know. There's just so many ways. And we were talking about that on the partnership on the K1s. Explain that. If a property is sold, go ahead.
Yeah. So, well, we were talking like on an estate, right? So if you have a trust and you have to pay capital gains, the trust is the one that owns it at that point in time. Their tax brackets are higher typically than individuals. Okay. So you don't want it to stay within the trust. You typically then push it out through K1s to the individual level, and you as the individual will pay the capital gains tax on it, usually at a lower rate because the estate taxes are higher. So it's one of those. I mean, someone's going to pay, but we always want to try to get it down to the lower.
Oh my gosh. Yes. If anything, that's what it is. It's like trying to figure out.
It's like Tetris.
I know. And it's not like I don't think that we should pay taxes. I'm not against that at all, but I think there's a lot of taxation. We get taxed when we earn the money. We get taxed when we spend the money at the grocery store or wherever. And there's just a lot of taxes. I feel like we got a lot of taxes.
I'm going to say that the rough calculation is that probably about 55% of your income is spent on taxes. This is not a blog. This is not anything. This is my own calculations of
the book of Rachelle.
Yeah. Like you say, you pay taxes when you pay gas. You don't always see it, but it's there. Sales tax, property tax, personal property tax. We're talking, you get all the way through. There's a lot. And when you do those numbers, I'm telling you, it's going to be around the 55% range. So
holy Moses. I wonder what other countries are like.
That's a good question.
Not really, but I
might be moving.
No.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I said I'd want to know, but now I'm like, knowledge is responsibility. I'm good.
Yeah, you have to make an educated decision.
You already told me 55%. I'm like, oh. But no, people say, no, I really do. Like I don't want to avoid taxes. And I'm like, well, let me just knock this out of the park. You're not avoiding them if you went to Target, if you shopped at Walmart, if you went to Reese's, anything. Like if you got gas in your car, you haven't avoided any taxes.
Well, and I hate when people use that term, avoid taxes or cheat the tax system or whatever this terminology is. And it's not that. We are making informed decisions and we are using strategies to pay our fair share, but not a penny more based off the tax code that is written. So we are utilizing, what is written and applying it to our situation and mitigating that liability. So we're not cheating, we're not avoiding, but we're using our education, our brains, and we're mitigating that down.
And I know in my short little 42 years of doing this, that it's ever changing. The landscape for taxation and rules and legislation is ever changing. And what it is today, if you like it, it's not going to stay this way. If you don't like it, it's not going to stay this way. And I think this year, now more than ever, I've heard a very positive buzzing going on with people getting money back. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking forward to even the clients in 2026 filing in 2027, because 2026 is another great year for getting money back into the people's hands, and not so much on federal taxes and state taxes. So
yeah, there were definitely some good incentives that came through that are going to help people, and people are going to see that dollar impact.
Right.
So whether it's the additional $6,000 for the seniors, whether we're talking the tax on tips, the first part's not taxable. Overtime also got some pieces, and then car interest. If you bought a car in 2025, you should be asking your tax professional, does my car actually qualify? for that. So there's just a lot of opportunities that are there.
Right. And again, I think it's job security for us because it's ever changing. And I remember after the One Big Beautiful Bill came out, reading through everything until I'm just cross-eyed and glossy and thought we had it all. We started doing our workshops on it, teaching. And then I had a client that came in and said, we're talking about moving his Roth, and that 5 year, once you move your money into that Roth, you can't do anything for 5 years. And he said, I know, but you know, in that One Big Beautiful Bill, it said after 59 and a half, that went away. And I'm like, what? I was shocked. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome, because that was kind of a hang up for some people. Is that
a little caveat?
Yeah. So all the fun little nuances there. And like I said, if you don't like it, it'll change.
Correct.
And you love it, it's going to change, you know, because we do have a change of leadership 2 to 4 years.
I consider it like the Oklahoma weather, you know, stay here a day.
It'll
Change.
Sometimes I leave in the morning in a parka and I go home and I'm in a t-shirt. It's like,
that's fair. I'm telling you.
Yes. I think that gifting is definitely one of those things that we can bring the generations together. We can help them navigate through this world. And of course, times are different for my daughter and grandkids than they were when I was growing up, but we can help them navigate through these waters of, you know, this is what to expect. And like you just said, owning a house, I feel like, is one of the best investments. It truly is.
I mean, I think it's one of those long-term investments, right? Everybody, you know, I remember when I was first looking, this older gentleman sitting next to me was like, you never buy a house to make money off of it. And I was like, what are you talking about, Joe Hartle? You've had one forever. Don't sit over here. But I understand what he's saying is you're not looking at it to just necessarily make money, but they do appreciate over time. So they are a great investment. You're also paying your own mortgage. You're building that equity. So I do think that it is a great opportunity for individuals. And it's heartbreaking that it has become such a discouragement, as we had talked about before, for so many individuals, because the husband and the wife are working and they don't feel that they're making enough to be able to get that down payment. This is a good opportunity to, you know, fill that gap. And wouldn't you, as the person giving the money, right? You have money, you have only so much time on this earth. Wouldn't you rather get to see it spent and see the enjoyment? Or would you just rather pass it on afterwards? I don't know. So I think a lot of our clients feel that way.
Usually I'll sit down with the clients that are just retiring and say, hey, what are some of the things you want to see in your lifetime? Because typically when we're getting towards retirement, we have a lot less in the front mirror, the front window than the rear view. And it's like, what is it? And I've had some that say, you know, I really want my daughter and son-in-law and grandkids to own their own house. And is that what they want? Because some don't. They don't want
that is very true.
It's a different generation these days. And have that conversation. Say, hey, let's put this in the plan. Let's see how this all works out, and let's bring them in and see where they're at with their student loans and debt and all that stuff. You had a really good point. When you were buying a house, even when I was, there was a zero down, and we do have those rural loans out here in the middle of the United States. We do have zero downs, but the interest rate for us was so much lower, so you could buy a house. And anymore, there isn't the interest rate plus the cost of materials. The houses are more expensive than they've ever been, and they're not getting any cheaper. So it's one of those, I don't know, looking at the big picture of it all and deciding what's important, and helping this next generation out if we can, if anything more than just educating and having the conversations with them.
Yeah, well, and it always goes back to what we say, right? We need to know your starting spot and where you want to get. And we can find a plan that works for you for that.
And then whatever that includes. And then, like you just said, all the different detours and stuff that comes along the way. So, well, again, it's been wonderful having us chat. And if you want to hear more, go to phx.financial. The blog, it is helping adult children buy a home, how to gift a down payment the smart way. The best way is really what I should have put on there, how to gift a down payment the best way. And having the conversations, because, you know, there's those things that will ask you a question maybe when you're sharing that story to see if we can't help mitigate some, maybe a landmine that could happen in the future. So, all right. Well, thank you again for joining us today. Please hit subscribe so you know when these are uploaded to YouTube and all wherever you're listening to this at, on whatever your favorite channel is. And You can reach me again, Suzanne Porske with Phoenix Financial Group at phx.financial. And
Rachelle Harp with Rachelle Harp Accounting, www.harpaccounting.com. And we pull the strings to keep your financials on note and your taxes perfect.
oh, there we go. She's just making that up. She just came up with that last. Hey, we're your financial professionals. We're here to help you in any way that we can. And until next time, take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.